Hi everyone, my name's Anne-Marie. Welcome to this how-to guide of how to heat emboss using two different colours. Now we're stepping it up a little bit from our previous how-tos, and this is just a simple idea and it shows you how. Now once you've stamped your image and you've embossed it like we've done in our previous video, what happens if we want to just, dip our toe into something a little bit more advanced? Well, heat embossing with two colours is ideal. So a few of the things that you're going to need, as well as your scrap paper and your smooth stamping card, you're going to want your embossing tool, you're going to want your perfect medium or your stamping ink that's, keeps wet to be able to hold the embossing powder. I like perfect medium. I find it works for me, and I think if you find a product that works for you, whatever it is, you stick to it. And mine is perfect medium. We're going to be using my own range of stamps. We're going to use the same stamp that we used in our previous tutorial, and it's the Happy New Year sentiment stamp. And I thought I'll use the same one so that you can see the difference. So this is from my own range of seasonal cluster stamps. You're also going to want some embossing powder. So the embossing powder that I've chosen is Personal Impressions Sweet Dixie, Candy Red and Courtyard Green. So we're going to use both of these to create something a little bit different. So I'm going to take my stamp on my acrylic block and I'm going to take my perfect medium and I'm just going to pat the ink over the stamp and I'm going to stamp it on scrap paper to begin with, just to make sure that I'm stamping nicely and I've got even pressure, because I have a little bit of a problem hand and arm, which some of you will know, and some days I can stamp better than others. And I just want to see if I've got a weak spot, and I just want to warm my stamp up by stamping it once. So there we go. You won't be able to see much of what I've stamped because perfect medium is transparent. Now that to me looks okay, and it should work nicely when we stamp it on our smooth card. So I'm just going to go over the stamp again, and you'll notice that I'm using a stamp mat. I find using a stamp mat, I get a better stamp on my paper. I've tried without it and I've tried with different things, and it works with a pile of paper, just A4 or an old Yellow Pages if you remember those, and it just gives a good surface to stamp on. So now I've inked my stamp and I'm taking my sheet of smooth stamping card from Personal Impressions Sweet Dixie, and I'm going to stamp in the middle. I'm going to press my stamp down and then remove it, and you can just see where I've stamped with the perfect medium. So I'm going to take my stamping mat away, and the base underneath is a heat mat, so that will protect my desk against the heat from the heat tool. I've taken a piece of scrap paper and I've folded it in half and unfolded it, so I've got kind of like a score line down the middle, and we're going to collect our embossing powder. So I'm going to start with the Courtyard Green, and there's no hard and fast rules of which you start with. Just start with whatever you prefer. We're going to go diagonal to build up kind of like an ombre effect as it goes, and then I'm simply going to tip the embossing powder to one corner. That's all. I'm not taking it over all the image, so it's only on half of our stamped image. Now I want a little bit more just across the actual centre there. So again, I'm just going to tap it away onto the scrap paper. So what it's caught on the scrap paper, we can tip back into our jar, so we're not wasting any, and it will literally only retain the actual embossing powder it needs. Now for the second colour, I'm going to do exactly the same thing, and I'm going to add scrap paper and then take the candy red, and I'm going to sprinkle that over the top of the remaining stamped image, and I will just tip that away. Now there will be no loose green because the green has already stuck onto the ink that it needed, and you've tipped the excess away, so the remainder of the red will only stick where the green isn't. So I'm just going to tap the extra away and put the red back into the pot. Again, you see it uses so little embossing powder because you're saving it, you're not wasting any. The image takes so little of the powder that your pot's full again. Okay, so we can put that to one side and then heat up our image. So you can see from the image it's got the two-tone of colour. So at the moment it's still powder, but I'm going to turn on my heat tool and I'm slowly going to take it across over the image and heat it up, and you'll see how it all just blends so nicely together. I think contrast of colours can look great. Red and green is classical Christmas, so we're using the Happy New Year. It's just going to work. You could use any colour, it really doesn't matter. And you can see how this is changing as we're heating it up, and trying to angle it so that you can see how it changes, and the texture goes from powder to glossy before your eyes, and it just looks so good. I really do like using a combination of colours, and the Sweet Dixie embossing powders are great for doing this. They're great for doing different techniques on lots of different things, and that to me just looks superb. And just finish that little bit there. There we go. You can see how it's all changed. And I can turn my tool off. I've got my safety element here for the stand, so I can stand it up until it cools down. And that is double colour heat embossing, using two colours on a stamped image to create something a little bit different, a little bit unique as well, because if you think you can use whatever colours you like, you don't have to use two colours, you can just use the one colour. So you can see the difference, and it's just a great tip really of doing something different with your embossing powders. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's given you an idea of something different to be able to do with your embossing powders and your inks. You can get different effects if you use coloured ink and maybe different embossing powders and using them in different ways. So it's all about having fun really. So I do hope you've enjoyed watching, and I would just like to say thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you next time.